game downstairs because he's watching the cats. Um, because I forgot to close the door.
Mine's off playing golf, so
Yeah, well,
unless somebody else shows up at the front door, I should be all right.
okay. All right, so are we ready?
Yes.
Then let's begin.
Hello? Are you ready? Then we'll begin.
Did you miss us? Gee, I hope you did, and I hope you come back now. So here we are back from vacation, Monday Morning Catholic episode number 38.
6:30 Monday morning. I'm here hiding in my bed. A song plays on my alarm clock as I cover up my head. Somewhere in the distance, I remember yesterday.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back after our little hiatus to Monday Morning Catholic. I'm your host and moderator, Joanne Mercier, Director of Religious Education at Saints Martha and Mary Parish in Lakeville, Massachusetts. I still have to keep remembering to say that. And we're glad you could make it back with us as we gather here each week to take a look at the previous weekend's liturgies and try to make sense of everything we hear and see and smell, even if we're in another state. I have two with me today. First of all, someone who is at least home with us, Linda Reed, St. Thomas's Parish in Providence, Rhode Island. Good morning, Linda. How you doing?
Good morning, Joanne. I'm doing fine. Glad to be back home.
Yes. We'll find out where you landed last week. And our friend, Stephen Romano, Director of Music at Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Bristol, is here by way of Avon Lake, Ohio. What are you doing out there this morning, Steve?
Oh, we're just visiting some friends. Having a good time.
So you took a weekend off.
I certainly did, and I didn't miss one bit of it.
Well, everybody needs a little time off, and
It's true, and I'm lucky that I have, good subs to cover for me. So.
Amen. And I don't mind subbing for people myself, too, because I did some subbing this summer so people could go on vacation. But I was very happy to be off for 10 days. Yes. It was so nice because now we're back into the grind. Now, Linda, you were away also while I was away.
Yes, I was. I was to my hometown of Baltimore to visit with family and to attend the wedding of my nephew, my sister's youngest child. So that was really fun, lots of fun, and saw all the family.
Family reunion time. Weddings is a great time.
Yes, and so I also had good subs to cover for me.
Yeah, it was your son.
One of them I had to give birth to, but that's okay.
And the other one was me.
Yes, Stephen covered a funeral for me.
You did not give birth to.
Whom I did not give birth to, but could have.
Yeah, but you were all Italian, and I'm the only Portuguese one in the bunch. So, quite all right.
Yes.
But I think we're all rested up, although my first week back at the parish was like, okay.
Yeah, I know. Well, I hit the ground running. I got in Tuesday night at 9:30. Wednesday morning, 10 o'clock, funeral. 11:30, funeral. Yeah.
Oh,
it
not
was like
fun.
Crazy. I hardly remember being away.
Oh,
so.
And it's funny, I've been here, we got here yesterday, and I've already had to turn down like 3 funerals this week.
Oh.
But you know what? That's okay because I need my time away. So.
Yes, we all need it.
Yeah.
Now are you in Ohio all week?
Yes, I'll be back next Saturday. Yep.
Oh, right in time to go right back to church.
Yeah, I thought of that because I don't land until 2:15, and then mass is at 5 o'clock.
Uh-oh.
So I thought, well, maybe if the plane's late, they'll have to sing a cappella.
Yeah.
So
Nah, don't worry about it. You'll be fine.
I'm not too concerned.
Yeah.
So
Don't worry about it. Anyway, I have new sounds, so watch out.
I hear.
No, that's an old one, but I have new ones, so watch out.
Okay.
Something I got a chance to do, well, like 10 minutes before we started. But I can't say I did it over vacation because I didn't.
He didn't.
We staycationed, but we did a lot of things that needed to be done around the house and had some time to ourselves. So that's just as good as going somewhere sometimes.
Yes.
I'd like to see us try to take a little bit of time off in December, though, because for me, December is not a big month. So
I'm glad it's not for you.
Not for him. Yeah.
Not for me. But
For me, it is.
I know for you too it is. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. We're here not to think about all that kind of stuff. We're here to look at the previous weekend's readings and what happened or didn't happen in liturgy. Because now that we're into September, we're getting into that point where there's lots of things that can happen in liturgy. You know, the things that can show up now. RCIA rights can take away things. Next week, we actually have the Exaltation of the Holy Cross, which is a solemnity in the middle of ordinary time, which is nice to have. So things can be radically different from week to week, sort of.
Yes.
As, Catechetical Sundays the weekend after, for those of you who are commissioning catechists and stuff. Although some people are doing it next week, and
some people are doing it next week, which
some
make
people
a whole lot of sense. But
we have a collaborative, so some of the collaborative doing it next week, some's doing it the week after.
Okay.
It makes sense for us. So there are some things coming up now that will alter. So one of us may have something different in the next few weeks. So this will be hopefully exciting and varied for our listeners, all 7 of them who remained with us after we went on vacation. Because seriously, in podcast land, if you miss a week, people think you're leaving.
Well, I have to tell you, I forgot we weren't doing it, so I had my iPad all set up.
Oh!
I had my homily notes, and then my wife said to me, "I thought you said you were taking today off," and I went, "Yeah, you're right." So I closed up shop and off we went. So.
Yes, and this may not happen if one of them could learn how to do the control.
Well,
yeah.
Right, and Joanne, like I told you, I can't be trusted to do it by myself. So,
Yeah.
Because I would say something I probably shouldn't. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, everybody's afraid because I have the buttons over here where I can shut them off.
That's right.
But I never do.
No. Joanne is the censor.
Yeah, well, I'm not used to being the League of Decency, so it's I'm sort of the one who wants to push the envelope a little bit, so don't leave all of the controls because I forget that they're there. Anyway, so let us move on to this Sunday of Ordinary Time as we move into...
Do you hear what I hear?
It makes me think of Christmas every time I hear that.
I know. Which makes me kind of creepy a little bit, but it's okay.
You all are starting to do Christmas music.
Yes!
Our first segment, Do You Hear What I Hear? Since we all heard the same readings this week, we heard them in very different places with very different homiletic interpretations. So let's look back first and see what our scriptures were, and then we will see what our presiders had to say about them. Ezekiel 33 was our first reading, and honest to goodness, it actually ties in with the gospel.
Hey!
Where Ezekiel is being told, you have to do this. You have to correct your neighbor. And he's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Oh, you're going with him. Yeah.
Why me? Why me? And this is something that a lot of the prophets felt that they weren't worthy, and he's right in there with them. Why are you picking me, Lord? Why do I have to do it? But as we go along on the weekend, you find out all of us are supposed to do it, not just the prophets. Psalm 95, one of my favorites. If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts, is the universal refrain. However, we did one this morning that was a little bit different, which I liked, and that was the Solitaire group, wasn't it, Linda?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, yes. Was
They
it
use Solitaire sometimes use the Grail translations,
okay.
and sometimes the Grail translations differ somewhat from the lectionary itself, but the Grail is approved for use.
Right. So lest people think we're doing, paraphrases that are just our own, the
No.
Grail is an approved translation.
And that's what the Solitaire Composers Group have used.
Right. And the refrain again was, because I...
Listen, open your hearts.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
it's very catchy. The congregation picks it right up, and you get the whole psalm right out, even the Massa and Meribah part. So
yeah, I was waiting to see how Massa and Meribah were going to get in there, because I was thinking, okay, where is that all going?
Yes.
So it was nice, and of course you were using 95, Steve, or was it Nancy that was using 95 as a common?
I did. I am. Yeah.
So this fell right in the wheelhouse today, but you weren't even there.
That's right.
What did they use at your parish?
In Ohio, what did they use?
They used the Respond and Acclaim.
Okay.
And I actually was impressed. The cantor intoned the answer, and then the choir chanted the verses.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Using the Owen Alstott chant mode from Respond and Acclaim. And I have to tell you, when you do that, in my opinion, it makes those chants a little bit easier to bear. Because, someone, I forget, I was reading a blog somewhere, and they said, when is OCP going to change the Psalms in Respond and Acclaim? It's time to maybe do something new.
To those of you who are watching this, the guy behind Steve really wants to know the answer to that question, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to mention to our viewing audience, remember, Steve's in Ohio. Okay.
Yeah, behind me, I am in Emerson's room. Emerson is 13.
Okay.
And they're from Chicago, so you have Chicago Blackhawks
All right.
behind me. Jonathan Toes.
Okay, whatever. Yeah, I'm not a big...
So that's that. He's keeping watch over this, but
yeah, he's looking
the point being, I thought with the choir chanting the verse, it was actually very, very nice.
Yeah, they can be nice if the choir's in on, get the descants going. They are simple though. And
at home we did the David Haas version,
which is one of my favorites. Yes.
Yep.
Okay, Romans 13, and guess what? That actually connected to all the other readings.
Yay!
And as our pastor pointed out right away, it's very rare that second reading is going to click.
Yeah.
The gospel or the first reading, but this week it does. So it's nice to hear that, you hear that love is the fulfillment of the law, but again, it's you've got to do something about making that happen. Just doesn't sit there.
Right.
And then Matthew 18, there were 3 different teachings in this scripture, which makes it a little confusing for people because people want to jump into the obvious one, which is, reconciling with your neighbor. Okay? But then there's the wherever 2 or 3 are gathered, and then there's whatever you bind in heaven or whatever you loose in heaven. So it's like, how do all 3 of those fit?
Yeah.
So it depends on where you want to go with that. So when I looked at it just as scripture, I said, maybe we could have cut one of these out.
Yeah.
Make it a little less confusing.
Actually, I read a little humorous piece on the gospel reading part where it says they thought Jesus was being pretty safe in saying whatever two of you agree upon on earth will be bound in heaven, because probably you can't find two Catholics who agree on anything.
Oh. Yikes.
Yeah.
That's a
Could it be?
that warranted that one.
Yes, it did.
Actually, it warranted this one.
Yeah.
That one makes me laugh. I can't use that too much. Something about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right.
And just to throw us off the rails a little bit.
More than we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was planning the music for today, one of the songs that popped into my head was "Seek Ye First the Kingdom of God," from way back when.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember growing up, there was a verse in it where two or three are gathered in my name.
Yes.
But
it's not in.
It's disappeared. So do any of you ladies know what happened to that? Or
I don't know what I think it has to do with what the publishers thought they should include in the hymnal.
Okay.
It's not in the GIA hymnals.
And it's not in the OCP. The third verse. Well, it's "Seek Ye First."
It was originally published under Word Incorporated, which is a Protestant group.
Okay.
I remember that being in there in the late 70s, early 80s. By the 90s to the 2000s, it disappeared.
Right, and so the third verse, they replaced it with "Man does not live on bread alone." But
they don't even have that in GIA.
No, well, in the OCP book, that's what it is. It's. I was just wondering if either of you
I haven't
knew
seen that one.
what happened to where two or three are gathered in my. It disappeared.
Yeah,
So.
You might check a World Library resource, Stephen.
Okay.
I seem to remember seeing it somewhere.
Yeah.
Check a World Library resource.
Okay.
And see if it's in there.
Yeah.
I used to do music at a parish that had the World Library, and that's where I seem to remember seeing it.
And so, consequently, we didn't do that song this weekend. So.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to because I was with Linda this weekend.
Yes!
I'll just interject things here and there, but I'm going to let these two go ahead, and they can flip a coin, who wants to go first.
Well, I'll start. I don't care.
Oh, go right ahead.
As Joanne mentioned, Father started out by saying that if you ask the lectors of our parish which reading they would rather read, either the first from the Old Testament or the second from Paul's letters, most of them would say they'd rather read the first. Because Paul's letters tend to be kind of convoluted and difficult to get across the meaning because of the multiple clauses and punctuation marks. And that's, for the most part, true, but he says today Paul does not mess around. He says today Paul is to the point. Love does no evil to the neighbor, hence love is the fulfillment of the law. So that's it. He made a little joke. He said, well, that's it. Have a good day. But we knew.
I thought the entire congregation was going to stand up and cheer.
Yeah.
At that point.
No. He just was fooling you. But then in reality, he said we have to go on to ask a couple more questions. What does he mean by love? And who is our neighbor? And so he first tackled what does he mean by love, and he's telling us that, of course, Paul does not mean that warm, fuzzy, romantic love, but rather that love that is dedicated to the well-being of others, even if we don't like them, even if they hold opinions that are different than ours. Jesus speaks of this in the gospel today when he says that just because we love one another doesn't mean we're always going to agree with one another. And then he couldn't resist telling a joke about a young woman who goes to her grandmother and says, you know, Grandma, you've had such a wonderful marriage. You've been married for so many years. What's your secret? And she said, well, my secret is that you never go to bed angry, and that's why I haven't slept since 1947. So, and he went on to say that that's not what Jesus means.
What really?
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 She says with bags under her eyes.
Yes.
He wants us, obviously, he wants us to try and forgive one another and work out the difficulties that we have. He didn't bring in a whole lot of this, bringing in a third party and then going to the church. But he did, talk about it in general terms of instead of avoiding people who want to fight with us or who we feel are doing things differently than that we should try and engage them in dialogue and try to turn them, as the first reading talks about. And then he went on to talk about who is our neighbor, and being that this is becoming or is a global community, our neighbor is just not the person who lives next door. And our neighbor is not the person who is down the street who needs help from the food pantry or food stamps. But our neighbor is everybody. And then he went on to talk about a song, and I thought it was kind of interesting because I've heard a song, an old song, No Man is an Island. And the other thing,
I wasn't sure because No Man is an Island.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, that's
is that in the Gather book?
No.
That's just an old 60s, 70s piece.
Yeah.
It's an old 60s song.
You're just old. Just.
I think it's based on a poem. Okay.
Yep.
The other one I was thinking of was Paul Simon's "I'm a Rock,"
which is different than I Am a.
Yeah. But a rock feels no pain and an island never cries.
Right.
But he said that this song is No Man is an Island. We were not made to be alone. And the other thing that popped into my head while he was preaching was Genesis. It is not good for man to be alone.
Exactly.
So I will create a helpmate for him. We were not created to be alone. We were created to live in harmony with our neighbor. And to belong to the church means that we have to correct one another at times, we have to challenge one another at times, and then of course he ended up by saying, and of course we have to love each other at all times, whether we like each other or not.
Yeah, we've had a little issue with that, haven't we?
Yes!
We may have more by the time this podcast is done.
Yes! Oh, yes.
Yes. Okay, Stephen. What did we hear in Ohio?
We heard. I was at St. Joseph's in Avon Lake.
Okay.
A big parish, big school, big campus. They have like one whole section of the neighborhood. It's quite impressive. The church was built in 2000.
Wow.
And it replaces the old church, which has now become their hall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a big campus. And so we had Father Ron is the pastor, and we went to 11 o'clock Mass, and he zeroed in on the last phrase in the Gospel, where two or three are gathered.
Okay.
In my name. And he spoke very, very well. And of course, I didn't want to pull out my iPhone and take notes. And I wasn't up in the choir loft, so I really had to pay attention today. So
you should have recorded it, Steve.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And we were halfway through the homily, and I thought, I know I should have recorded this. So I came home and feverishly wrote down some notes. But he zeroed in on where two or three are gathered in my name. There I am in their midst. And he actually talked about the Constitution on the Sacred Liturgy.
Oh, really? Okay.
And he talked about the importance of Scripture, the importance of the Eucharist, the importance of the ordained minister.
Ooh.
But most important, he said his focus of his talk today was going to be on when the church gathers in prayer as community. and then he weaved in the second reading about reconciliation, if you will, and he talked about the church as community making peace with each other, and then he worked in. I guess there was some talk recently about where the sign of peace should be within the Mass.
Yeah.
Yes, we had that. I don't know if did we discuss it, or
I don't think so.
Were you not here when we discussed it?
That might have been. But he talked about how they've decided to leave it where it is.
Yeah.
And
Right.
how before we come forward to receive Jesus, we really do need to make peace with each other. And then and why he talked about the Constitution on the Sacred Liturgy is he brought in how St. Joseph's was built after Vatican II, so it's sort of like in the round, sort of.
Okay.
And the purpose of that is you're not just seeing the back of everybody's head, everyone facing forward, but you see each other as community.
Right.
So you see the altar, and then you see each other, and he worked that in as well, and it was hot. Like I said, I was sitting there thinking, oh, I wish I could be able to take notes, because there were some crying babies and there's some noise going on. I was a little distracted, but he spoke very well.
That says that the Mass was full.
Oh, Joanne, I mean, there were probably 1,000 people.
Oh,
Wow.
Now, I took home their bulletin. I know this again. This is just commentary on the church outside of New England, but they have 4 masses: Saturday night, 2 on Sunday morning, and 1 on Sunday night. And it's obvious.
Their church seats 1,000.
At
Wow.
least, and it's very obvious that it's a very booming parish. Their bulletin's like 7 pages long.
Woo.
Ooh.
But as far as the liturgy, a couple of things to note. Interestingly enough, the Gloria was sung.
Yay!
And me being nosy. Me being nosy, I went over to the music director after the Mass, and I asked her what it was, and she said it's the Caribbean Gloria.
The Caribbean Gloria.
Which I have never heard.
I've never heard of it.
Obviously, they love it because everybody was singing it.
Who publishes it? Did you find out?
She said it was some guy that wrote it, and she got her hands on it. It's called the Caribbean Gloria.
Okay.
And it's very different, but obviously they sing it all the time because everybody was singing it.
Wow.
And actually, she said she had to rework it with the new translation.
Oh.
This one, now it sounds vaguely familiar to me. I was going to say, I'm thinking it's new, but
yeah, no, it's older. But I guess she said she had to rework it with the new translation.
wow.
But it got me thinking that in my own parish, I think we really should be singing the Gloria every Sunday, and we don't. And it really doesn't take that much more time.
No, it doesn't. Particularly if you find a brief setting that you can teach them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this particular one that they sang was refrain verse style, and it did go on for quite some time. But it was obvious that the pastor sings because he intoned it.
Oh, cool.
He also intoned. They did Mass of Christ the Savior, which I know has gone through controversy. It's not without controversy.
Oh.
But he intoned the Mystery of Faith, and he also sang the doxology with her accompanying him. So I had a grand old time because the music was excellent, the preaching was excellent, and as I was telling you two ladies before we started, it's an interesting dynamic being outside of the Northeast. Going to Mass. First of all, like I said, the place was full.
Wow.
And you have to wonder what's going on. But I'm sure that's subject for a whole other podcast. But
so far we have the wedding one we have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funeral one somebody wants us to do.
Yeah.
Ah.
And
Okay.
and today was the first day that the choir was back, and they did a beautiful job. They sang the offertory by John Ness Beck
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
at the preparation of the gifts, and
Nice.
then after communion was under both species,
Yes.
and communion took a long time, so we sang a hymn. We sang a song,
hmm
and by the way, I was telling the ladies, everyone stood for the whole of communion.
And I'm gonna
Um,
wait until we get to the next
yeah.
section before because I do have
And
more things to say on this segment. So.
yeah, so it's just interesting to see what other people do, and
Yes.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because I think sometimes if we get stuck in our own little worlds, we don't see what's going on outside.
And this is why
so-
we're doing this
Yes.
to get
Um,
others to hear what
Yeah,
we experience.
and it's also nice to know that in other places there's good things happening.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
and that's
Neither,
my story for today.
neither God nor the church are dead.
Correct.
Yes. Exactly.
Correct.
So let's get that out there right across to everybody. That's both
Yeah.
are alive and well.
And
Fine.
the Mass of Christ the Savior by Schutte, which I have not done. And I know, like I said, some people, I've seen some comments, people think it's too simple or it's simple sounding. The people seem to sing it very well. It sings very, very well.
Yes. Yes.
Well, before
and-
we continue rolling into liturgy, because I know
Sure.
but I just
Right.
there was
Let's
a couple
roll into
of things-
liturgy.
No, I wanted to say a couple more things on the reading.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because while I was, with Linda this weekend, I also listened to, of course, the Word on Fire sermon
Yes.
of Father Robert Barron. And it was interesting that he decided to break down each one of those steps in the beginning of that gospel that you're supposed to do. So the first thing you're supposed to do is go to the person that's grieving you and take it up with them. And he said that is very difficult for us to do. We don't like to do that. We would rather go to other people and talk about them.
And
Yes.
and stab them in the back.
Right.
Right.
Which is very Italian.
Ah!
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's very, very Mediterranean.
Yeah.
Really want it. But you're supposed to go and sit with the person. Now, if the person, fluffs you off, then you're supposed to get another person or two and take them with you to the person. And if the person still doesn't pay attention, then you're supposed to go to the church. And he made a particular observation that it's not like you go into the pulpit and tell everybody that this person is wronging you. He said churches in Paul's time would have been small household churches, small like ecclesial groups or small community groups like we have now for small group work. He said that's when you try, you bring the person or you get those people to go and help you deal with this. He said, so Jesus gives you a hierarchy of what you're supposed to do, but in the end, he still says, at the end of it, you treat them like a Gentile or like, what was it, a Gentile?
Tax collector.
A tax collector. And again, you're not supposed to treat those people badly.
That's right.
Jesus came and ate with tax collectors and Gentiles. So in the whole thing, Jesus is trying to tell you that you must try to work this out, no matter what it is, because we're supposed to reprove each other if people are doing something wrong or something against you. So he really lays it out as to what the thinking of the time was. And I think a lot of us just think, we'll just treat them like a tax collector.
Yeah.
But no, that's not the point.
No.
So again, I was waiting to see if anybody, if our pastor would get anywhere near that. He did a little bit, which was, but I liked where he went with it. And this is again why we do what we do, to bring all of these different things to light. So if you're interested in listening to Father Barron on a weekly basis, which I do religiously, because it's 15 minutes, seriously 15 minutes in my car right now driving to and from Lakeville is only part of my. So wordonfire.org, and you can sign up or go to iTunes and sign up for his sermons, because they're very, very good. So since we have already ventured into this realm, we will continue walking right into the right stuff, which is our liturgies and rituals. We've already started talking about how
Yes.
how things are going in liturgies and rituals. And I don't want to get particularly on a specific mass again, since we've already talked about that one to death, or try to make understanding of it. But I would like to point out a few things that we did see. I did put up on our Facebook page, and of course, if you're not going to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Monday Morning Catholic, you will find that I have a couple of articles up there. I have one post by Elizabeth Scalia, who is the anchoress at Patheos, which is a website for Christian thinkers and religious thinkers. I have another one up there called from the Amazing Parish Seminar, I guess, that they had a couple of weeks ago. And all of this trying to, and another one from a Catholic blog called the Catholic Gentleman. I'd never heard of this blog before, and I went over there and I said, this is interesting. But the article was calling Dress Up for Mass.
Yeah.
And so we're going to run a bunch of these things together, because I think a lot of us are looking at how can we do what we do better. Those of us who are liturgical ministers, music ministers, people whose job is to bring Sunday worship, put it together and make it run.
This could get bumpy, so fasten your seatbelts.
Oh, now look, we're just going to be really nice to each other, okay?
Or we're going to have to bring it to the church.
See, and you will take it to one point, but
On the bright side of life.
I'll play every one that I think we need to. Here.
Okay.
The point I want to make with all these, okay, and I'm bringing them up not to stir up water. What I'm bringing it up for is, now stop it. See, they're already on me because we've had some back discussion on this. Yeah. And even though we're all friends, and even though we all sit basically on the same side of the pew, we're still in disagreement over exactly where on that pew we're sitting. So here's the point. Elizabeth Scalia's post was basically talking about her growing up under one tradition, under one rite, and how being in this rite, as it's not as romantic or as nostalgic as the old rite was, but then when she went back to the old rite, she was like, well, I kind of miss this and that. But that wasn't the point of why I put it up there. It has to do with the other one, the Amazing Parish. Now, the Amazing Parish post, that whole thing, of course, the picture on there is a little older fashioned about our liturgy. But the point of the conference was to try to get folks to understand that Sunday has to come first. Parishes are always worried about how do we get people back? How do we put them in the seats? And they come up with all kinds of fundraisers and study days and all these other kinds of wonderful things, but never do anything if their liturgy is lacking. Okay, and there are a lot of places where, for one reason or another, liturgy is lacking. I don't care which tradition we're talking about. I don't care if it's the Tridentine or if it's the Novus Ordo. There are people who liturgy is the last thing on their priority list, and it should be the first. And that's the point I was trying to get a discussion going, but of course our people just don't like to discuss anything either on these.
No.
It's just us. So. Okay.
So we'll discuss.
it.
Well, I cannot disagree with anything that you just said.
But that's the point I was trying to make. I was using what had been coming up this week in social media to try to bring it up so we can make the point.
But Joanne, I think that so many of us that work in the church, what happens is, like you just said, we're so busy with getting the ham and beans ordered for the ham and bean supper, with getting the altar service schedule done, with getting the lecture schedule done, that I agree, the Sunday Mass experience falls through the cracks.
Exactly.
And especially now that we have the quote-unquote clergy shortage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, they can't do everything.
No, they can't.
But I do find in the north, where we are in the Northeast, there's some sort of resistance to letting lay people assist in things.
Right.
Yes.
And I would agree with you.
I would too.
Whereas, like where I was this morning, it was very clear to me that it's a group effort.
Right. And let me say this. It's a group effort with people taking their part.
Yes.
I think in the Northeast, and I'm pretty sure this may just be a Northeast phenomenon, but it may not be. Sometimes clergy are a little standoffish because they think we want to do their roles.
Right.
And I have no, I don't want to be a priest. I don't want to celebrate Mass. I don't want, that's not my charisms. That's not the gifts God gave me. The gifts God gave me, yes, I am very good at being able to take the pieces of the liturgy that the church gives us and put them in order and shape them and hand them off to a presider.
Right.
Okay?
And
That's my gift.
And it's few and far between, especially I think in where we are, that you'll see people with the titles of director of liturgy,
right,
or things like that, as opposed to like this morning's church, the music director, her title is also director of liturgy.
Right.
And I suspect that Joanne, she's doing what you did.
What I did, yes.
And the priest seems to be fine with that.
Yeah, because you don't do it. You don't function as a director of liturgy apart from your presider.
Right.
No.
Right.
And I think people might think that. You don't. The best collaborations is when you function as in team with your presiders.
Right. And I know I have family in Florida, and it's very much that way down there as well. That it's a collaborative effort.
Right. And I was lucky enough to study as much about Eucharistic theology and the sacramental theology as I could when I went for my master's. The gentlemen who study for priesthood do not get all of that. They get a rudimentary. When I went to school, they did take some of the same classes I did, but not all of them could take every class I could because they had to take practicum and all the other disciplines for ordination. They couldn't take, but you would think that because liturgy is the one thing they do all the time, spend more time doing liturgy. But they also have to know how to run a parish. They have to know the psychology of things. They have to know the human sexuality stuff. They've got to go the gamut. The canon law. They've got to go the gamut. So they don't get as much liturgy. So I was lucky enough to study it. And best collaborations were with gentlemen who did not see this, and I'm going to get right into my territory, me as a threat. I'm not a threat to anybody. I'm here to help.
Well, yeah, but some people don't want help.
Right, and that's perfectly fine. Just don't.
I mean, and I've had instances where I've had to work with visiting guests, if you will, who have when I go to them and say, this is what we're doing musically, the response has been, and this is and I'm not lying, you do your thing and I'll do mine.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And I turned right around and off I went and I actually did. I did my thing,
Yeah, I had to throw that.
And I'm not turning it into a bashing thing. I just think
we're not.
I personally appreciated seeing this morning the obvious collaboration by many people.
Yes.
Whether it was the very orchestrated way that they brought out the bread and the cups for, for consecration, for communion. You could tell it was a symphony of things going on.
Mhm.
Right, exactly. Liturgy can, if you want to use an allegory, it's an orchestra.
Yeah.
The presider is your conductor, and there are other ministries that, I mean, you have to have woodwinds, you have to have strings.
Right.
If they all didn't play their part, the music wouldn't be as beautiful.
Right. And the danger, Joanne, is when you do it all on your own or all by myself, as you just played.
Yeah.
When something goes wrong, or you
Yeah.
need the help, there's no one that knows how to do it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. And
But your instance, Stephen, of somebody who's subbing,
yeah,
that's hard to work with people who are subbing,
yeah,
because they're hopping from parish to parish, and it's very difficult for them to tailor what they do to every individual parish they go to.
right.
Fortunately, I think you and I are lucky to be able to work with pastors who will work collegially.
Mm.
Oh yeah, I mean, we all talk to our colleagues, and we hear all kinds of stories,
Mm-hmm.
and so even if something doesn't go exactly the way I'd like it to go,
Yeah.
I still say, but I'm thankful that A, B, and C,
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
Yep.
yeah,
And at the collaborative, now you remember I'm in a 3-parish collaborative.
Right.
2 priests. So you already know that we hire in,
Right.
we have a set list. So the people know who these priests are, and the priests know that they're coming to see us.
Mm-hmm.
and they also know the expectations of what is supposed to be done.
Right, exactly. And so,
Yeah.
but it does take a little bit of finessing, because each one of them has a different style, and you don't see each one of them every week. Sometimes
Right.
before you see one.
And that's what I'm dealing with now, because we lost our assistant as of June 30th.
Right.
So we have the pastor, but he's been bringing in different guys,
Mm-hmm.
and it's true. I mean, I'm on edge a little bit because we're
Oh,
not
yeah.
quite sure what's going on. However, and I have a big mouth. I'm the first one to admit it. So I'm not somebody who shies away from, and I've done this, that goes up to them and says, "Hello, we need to kind of get on the same page."
Yes.
So this is kind of how it's done.
Here's what we
And,
sing here. Yes.
I do it in a joking way, but I think it gets my point across.
Yeah.
and
It's really
it was
tough.
a little hairy.
It's
Yeah.
got to be tough for you to do that. But the point of all of this is the focus in the new evangelization really should be liturgy first. And that's what the folks in Maryland did with Rebuilt. Now, but I don't agree all of what they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked them up a little bit because you've been talking about them, and
Yeah, because I think what they tried to accomplish is to put liturgy first,
yeah,
but they're using a model that is outside tradition that I don't think it's going to carry to every parish. It may work for them.
right,
It doesn't quite.
Yeah.
And the amazing parish post pointed that out, and they're right. But what they say in their book Rebuilt is that it's the liturgy, stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're going to revitalize your parish, the first place you should start is the liturgy.
It's the
Because
liturgy.
as you will read in Elizabeth Scalia's, the liturgy makes a lasting impression on people.
Yes.
That's the whole thing. That's why people gravitate. That's why traditional, will gravitate towards the Latin Mass. They've had a great experience with it. Or they don't like what they've seen, and they are going towards something they feel is beautiful. Then you've got those of us on the other side, the Novus Ordo, the ordinary form of our liturgy, that some people are still stuck in decades past.
Yes.
That's not a good thing either. That was
Not a good thing either.
time for them, but not a good time now. Liturgy is, what did you say, Linda, which is the same thing I say?
It's a living and breathing entity.
Thank you.
That needs to grow.
Right. It is the sacrifice of the Mass. It is the sacrifice. It is a meal. It is both.
Yes.
Okay? And whichever ritual you are using, you need to do it to the best of your ability, in concert with your other ministers, lay or clerical. I don't care. Just do it well. And and where 2 or 3 are gathered, going back to the gospel, you know, Christ is there among us. So that's the point I'm trying, you know, because we had a lot of discussion.
Well, it was just that, you know, just a couple of remarks. Perhaps I don't have the same nostalgia as the anchoress has for the Tridentine model. I have nothing but bad memories or bad experiences.
Right.
And our Tridentine Mass was not poorly done.
Right.
But it was so exclusionary, which, you know, it was all men, all boys, all priests, you know?
Right.
And here I was saying, why can't I do something? You know?
Right. And see, when I hear from folks who are traditional that crazy things happen at a Novus Ordo Mass, my experience has never been that.
No.
Because as I grew up, when I grew up in an ethnic church, so already I was doing things not even even when we did the Tridentine Rite, it was still a little bit different because we were ethnic. Okay? But that takes a totally different, you know, take on flavor.
Yeah, but this wasn't ethnic. This was out in the suburbs of Maryland.
Right.
And it was, you know, the Mass was no two ways about it, as far as I could see. And I'm sitting there with my little St. Joseph Missal, you know, valiantly trying to follow along, but feeling outside the fence.
Right.
Because I didn't have the right body parts to participate in this.
Whoa.
And, well.
Okay. Oh, Lord.
Here we go.
Everything was male. Everything was male. And so I just sat there with and it was like, you know, it doesn't make any difference to anybody whether I'm here or not. Why am I here?
Yeah, see, that is your experience. Okay.
That is my experience.
Right, and no one's...
I didn't have any, you know, life-changing beatific vision, unfortunately.
Right.
That the anchoress seemed to have.
Right, but again, when later on in her piece, when she says they went back to one after so many years, they were, her and a friend, they were almost taken back a little bit because they were like, gee, I really would have liked the priest to be facing us.
Yeah.
So there are still some things in the new ritual. I have a feeling somewhere down the road the two will meet again. Maybe not in our lifetime.
I hope so. I mean, you know, because it's
again. But
because
it's getting very polarized.
Having the two is very polarizing.
I agree. But see, what I was getting at before was when we hear that our masses have like clowns and we do all kinds of strange things.
But they don't anymore.
But that's never been my experience. I did not
either.
Stuff like that. And I never promoted anything like that as a liturgist. Never would I ever do that. Because my thing is read the rubrics. You two know me as read the rubrics, folks. There's plenty of choices here.
But listen, I had some lot of experience with early post-conciliar liturgy, okay? I had a lot of experience with it, but none of it was as ridiculous as some people say they saw.
And that's not to say it didn't exist.
Nope, But it's not to say
not
that's what I experienced.
Right, it's not everybody's experience. Some of us have done the Novus Ordo as tip top as we can get it.
Please, I've sung some very questionable songs early on.
Well,
But
haven't
that
we
was all we had at the time.
Right. We will
That
not.
was all we had.
You know, I mean, as I'm in my late 30s now, so well, no, the point being, I grew up, you know, really conscious of what was going on at Mass.
Yes.
Was the 80s.
Yes.
Okay.
And by that time, yeah.
Right.
That time, yeah.
And I remember growing up in a parish. I grew up at St. John and Paul Parish in Coventry, at big parish, but I remember the liturgy and the music as really good.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think I can remember going to church. We sang everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Lord Have Mercy, the Gloria, the Our Father, everything.
That's
everything.
great.
Now
by
I
the
think
80s, we were beginning to refine things a little bit.
right,
Yeah.
and so you know. That, you know, my experience with the liturgy is like, you know, from the 80s on. So
Yes.
I think, Linda, you're right. By that point, things had started to smooth out a little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I still think that there are pockets of places that haven't moved on. And I think that's what becomes the fodder for
Yes.
the generalization
Yeah.
that we endure. And to the flip side, I think there are pockets of that tradition that get stuck in some of our brains, and that's the fodder for what we talk about too.
Yeah.
So somehow, some way, we have to get in the middle, like Jesus is asking us to, and
Yes.
And, you know, Joanne, you brought up
with the liturgy first.
With the liturgy
you brought up,
first.
yeah. But
Which
Joanne,
musicians
you
don't
brought
want
up yeah.
Sorry, go ahead,
But
Steve.
ethnicity, no,
Yes.
like you brought up, you grew up in a Portuguese church.
God, yeah.
The church that I work at now and have been for the past 14 years was Scalabrini
Uh-huh.
until 1980 when they turned it over to the diocese.
Mm.
So all of the questionable things, I think that kind of blew over the church. But it shaped who the parish is even today, because
Sure.
they've I think over the years they've assigned like-minded clergy there, you know. So it's formal, it's serious,
Mhm.
and I think some people that turns some people off.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
It will. And I don't know what every every assembly takes on their own flavor
Yeah.
Mhm.
in every parish. So what's the answer to that? I don't know.
Right.
All I know is that if we do the liturgy as best as we can with the best resources we have, and we have to go out and buy all kinds of fancy stuff, but that doesn't mean we use tablecloths from Walmart.
No.
I mean, well, and I've seen both. They make me really itchy.
Yes.
It has to be pleasing. It has to be from the top 10%. It has to be an able gift.
Yes.
Okay, and not a Cain gift. It has to be an able gift.
And
Okay.
I agree with all of that.
Yeah.
All of it.
But the point is to put that in front of people as they say, what should we do? How should we start? You start with the liturgy.
Yes. Because that's
Because
where you touch the most people.
Right. What I have taught people and what I've said publicly many, many years now is liturgy is job 1A, catechesis is job 1B.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you see that liturgy contributes to catechesis, which contributes back to liturgy. So it's a complete circle. Those two things are the focus of any parish. Everything else is social services.
Yeah.
But if you leave those two pieces out and concentrate on everything else, you have the danger of becoming, as to what wise priest said, a social service agency.
Yes. Yes.
And we don't want to do that as much as we want to help our people. They still have to know why and in whose name we do it.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think people are falling prey to the social services trap. because it's difficult to give people theology when they're hungry.
Right.
Fill their bellies first, then fill their souls.
Right.
I think some saint said that. I sure didn't. But somebody said that. Fill their bellies first and then fill their souls. It's very difficult to, just expect people to show up at liturgy who are in dire need of the basics of life.
Right.
And so, having a food pantry, handing out warm clothing in the winter, yes, they are social services. But these things need to go hand in hand with liturgy as the source and summit.
And I grow very suspicious of when you drive by a church at night and it's locked up like a bank.
Yeah.
And we all know some of them. I won't mention any, but
it's good.
It's like they close up at 3:00.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder. It's too much. I think some of them are too much. Like you just said, Linda, they're too much on the other side.
Right.
And don't have any sense of
social activity. Yeah.
Right. You've got it, but it's still liturgy first.
Yes, it is.
Because
you have to concentrate your resources on the liturgy, so that when they are ready, when they have eaten something, and they have mittens, that they have something to come to, a community there that's worshiping.
Yes.
Together.
Yes. Okay, we got through that. Yay!
I was good.
Yes, but of course, people are going to want to talk. So if you want to send us feedback, and we know you will, MondayMorningCatholic.net in the comment box, MondayMorningCatholic@gmail.com. If you want to write to us, you can throw it up on Facebook, Facebook.com/MondayMorningCatholic, or 774-955-0659 will give you the voice feedback line. If you really want us to put that on the air, we will. Let's move right along. Just one thing in our technology section, because I do want to bring this up. The Boston Globe here in our area launched a brand new media site called Crux. Believe it or not, CRUX. And it is a Catholic media presence. With John L. Allen Jr., they hired him for their Catholic section, but now they've given him this entire media presence. And I have to say, it's kind of weird seeing a mainstream media company sponsoring Catholic media. But so far, the first week, I'm a little impressed with what I'm seeing. I would like to see somebody with more bucks and more, pull, help us get the word out. But I also sit there and I'm analyzing things as I'm reading it, going, is this okay?
Well, is your reservation that because they're financing it, they may have some power of censor?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be, because I would want it, and I would want it to be authentically, we're going to talk about things that mainstream does not want us to talk about, because they want everything to be wonderful and, live life any way you want it in the mainstream. So if you've got Catholics on the other side saying, well, not quite, no.
Yeah.
What is it? Are they going to, start pressuring, no, you can't say that? Because then that's not journalism, and that's not, spreading the news. That's censorship.
Yeah, right. Well, I think the only answer to that is that we have to just keep an eye on it and see what it pans out to be.
I am keeping an eye on it, and I'm making it known so people can watch and keep an eye on it. And just like we'd like them to do here, contribute. Because they're giving you, there's a section called Vox Populi, which is Voice of the People, which they're asking for feedback.
Mhm.
The only way they're going to get to hear what normal people have to say about all this is if somebody writes something in that section. So be nice. Don't get weird. You know, this might be something. This could be the wave. You know, it could. It's an interesting experiment.
Yeah.
For all of our sakes, I hope it works, because the more we get the news out, the better. You know, speaking of news in the Catholic realm, there've been a couple of things on the internet this week. First, Pope Francis had a Google Hangout.
Yay!
Yeah, he did just what we're doing.
I think we should try to get him on one week.
Yeah, can we get him on one week?
I mean, what's
Your
the
mouth to God's ear.
I mean, you know what, Joanne, give him a call and tell him what we're all about. You know.
You know, don't tell me, because I just, you know, it would be fun, but I mean, into the English language and idioms probably would not be. I mean, what would he say? Things that I have on my board here.
We'd have to all learn Italian, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, well, you guys would be better off than me, because
not
you
much.
are Italian.
But
No, I only know the swear words. That's all. So.
Oh, gee, that's not good.
No, not good.
I guess he tried Google Hangouts, and this is something that when the Vatican's representative, Monsignor, and of course I'm forgetting his name.
Monsignor, something it ends in a vowel, right?
Yes.
No. Actually, the head of the media, or the head media priest there, is English or Irish, I remember, and he came and spoke to us at the Catholic New Media Conference last year, and said that they were really pushing for the Pope to be on every single media platform possible, and that Francis was not opposed to trying it.
No.
So for
he tweets.
he does his own tweets, apparently. They do, you know, sometimes have to get it into many different languages, or just try to get it, you know, from Italian into English and make sense out of it.
Right.
But he tried Google Hangouts this week with high school students from Australia.
Yeah.
And I think there was Asia. He went all over the place.
Good for him.
I got to give him credit.
Yeah.
Now, if he didn't have his own podcast, this would be really. What would he call it? You know, name the Pope. The Pope. If you think the Pope should have a podcast, what name do you think?
What name would you give it? Yes.
Lasagna in the highest.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I like that. That was good. Oh, good Lord. I didn't say it. Stephen did, so send the email to Stephen.
No, actually, that's I had heard that was like from a joke years ago where the kid said to his mother, "Mom, on Sunday, why are we singing about food?" And she says, "Well, what do you mean?" He says, "Well, we keep singing lasagna in the highest."
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I want to have after lunch, you know, on Sunday. The other thing that was in the news this week was the debate over the cause for sainthood for the Venerable Fulton Sheen.
Yes.
Man, this man caused a lot of problems when he was alive, and he's still causing them when he's dead. Because he always bucked the system, and he's still bucking the system, apparently, but he's not doing it.
Joanne, how long, when did he pass away?
1979.
Oh,
so
okay.
My recollections of him is as, you know, I remember him early on in my life, but I have watched some of the programming, and he was up against, my mom said, he was up against Milton Berle and beat him on TV. So, I mean, he was there every week.
Sadly, could you imagine if there was something like that now?
There wouldn't be. That's the problem.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
And he was up there. He was very personable, and he was quite. Whoa! How did I do that?
Whee!
Quite the showman. It's still, you know, this is what happens when you're on regular. You know,
Yeah. There
why
you go.
I get so distracted on video. It's terrible. And now everybody's going to want to watch the video. Here, there you go. Watch. Oh, no.
Yeah. Wardrobe malfunction.
It wasn't even that bad, so don't even give me a hard time on that.
Wardrobe malfunction.
I can show you my tattoo if you want.
No, Stephen, thank you.
No. Yeah, let it. All right. But right now, Fulton Sheen was probably ahead of his time using media to spread the gospel. Okay, big time ahead of his time. He had a run-in with Cardinal Spellman in New York when he was his auxiliary, and of course the Pope sided with Fulton Sheen and not the Cardinal. So later on, the Cardinal sent Fulton Sheen to be the Bishop of Rochester, New York. You know.
Now, Joanne, you say run-in. What do you mean? They had to do like a disagreement, or?
Well, there were, from what I've read, I don't know this because I lived it, but what I read was the money that he was making off of this. I don't know if the Cardinal did it or if it should have been handled a different way. And and he was, of course, putting it back into evangelization, from what I understand, and the Pope sided with him. So there you go. When that happens, it's like we just wait our turn.
Yeah. You
know, revenge is a dish served cold, and cold was he sent him to Rochester. But what's happening now is he's a venerable, so that means he's on the second rung, going to the beatification rung. He does have a miracle that can be attributed to his intercession. A woman 4 years ago gave birth to a stillborn baby, and the baby 61 minutes no breathing, and the whole time she was praying and saying the name Fulton Sheen. Fulton Sheen, please help. Fulton Sheen, and the kid came out of it, and the kid is old, and the kid has no signs of it. Kid is normal. So they're saying there's no other way.
Yeah, except a miracle.
It's a miracle, you know.
It's a miracle.
Okay, so they're ready to go ahead with this, but the Bishop of Peoria, is where Fulton Sheen was from and was ordained. The Bishop of Peoria was told by the Archdiocese of New York that they would send his body back because he's buried in New York. They'd send his body back so they could collect the first-class relics. Okay, now I'm not going to get into a story about relics here.
Okay.
But apparently New York's had a change of heart about it because they don't feel that the body should be disturbed. So I guess there's some discussion and all of that, and all of a sudden they've just decided to shelve the whole thing for now. And that's sad because I hate to see people fighting over something that could be very good for the church, because we need saints, and we need a patron saint of the which I believe he should be a patron saint of the organization. But it may take a little bit of going to the church. Again, and if you're having an argument, go to the church, and see if the church can help you work it out.
By the time they work this out, it'll be the old evangelization.
Yeah, probably. I hope not. I don't want to see this, because of course now New York is saying, well, we'll take up the cause from Peoria.
Oh, yeah.
Now that's going to look like we're stealing it from Peoria.
Yes.
You've got to be really careful here. Apparently also his relatives are involved, because his relatives are all saying that he should stay where he is. So everybody needs to kind of honor that.
Yes.
I think if it's been expressed that he wanted to be buried in New York and stay in New York, then I think that has to be, that's got to be looked at. All the whole sides of it. All you hear is what's in the news, which is they've now shelved anything to do with the cause.
Yep.
Which is really sad, because he was good at what he did. He really brought the church into the forefront and put a really good, used the media of his time to get it across. And
yeah, he did.
But apparently in death, as in life, he, bucking the odds and bucking
Hey.
the powers that be. So we should pray that this gets resolved and relatively soon. If this is meant to be, if we need another,
Yeah.
this is meant to be, we need another person who can pray for us and with us, then by all means, he's
By
one
all
of my
means.
favorites. I want to see this one happen.
That would be
So-
good. It would be good for everybody.
I want to see this one happen. So, for obvious reasons. All right, last thing. Our Concord, I know we're running late.
Yeah,
so
we are.
We're going to finish it up. Our friend, the Concord pastor, Father Austin Fleming, put up a challenge. Now, it does not involve ice water, but it does involve, especially for those of us who work in ministry, that our Sabbath is usually not Sunday.
Yeah.
And what he's trying to challenge us all to do is to take a day of rest and a day of prayer, because how can we do what we do if we don't take some time off? Now, if we can't take Sunday, today I happen to be taking Sunday. Next week, I have no idea what day it's going to be.
Yeah.
But if you can't take the day, then can you take part of your day? If you can't take part of your day, what hour in the day can you take? If you can't take an hour, what break in the day
Mhm.
take? So he's challenging all of us to find and make time for a Sabbath. And so I've shared it, and I'm asking people to go on our site and share it with everybody, because I think those of us, especially in ministry, need to observe our Sabbaths.
Yeah.
Because if
I try to take Monday, but between funerals and staff meetings,
yes, and
I
I
take
try to take
half a
Fridays,
Monday.
and I try to take Fridays, and that's what I'll be doing this week. I happen to have
Yeah.
Sunday today, but I'm going to take Friday this coming week because I have to be at church Saturday and Sunday next weekend.
Yeah.
So, but Steven's got the whole week off.
Good for
I
him.
do.
Yeah.
And you know what? I didn't bring anything with me. I thought, well, I'll bring stuff to work on this week, and I said, no,
Nah.
I left everything home.
It's vacation.
See?
So,
Now you're paying attention to what Father Fleming is saying.
amen.
So I think we all need to do that, and it would be a good idea. So take his challenge. I think his challenge is a lot better than dumping ice water over your head.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I did dump ice water over my head, so
I did see
can
that.
do both. I can do both.
Yes.
So.
All right. Well, we've reached the end of a very long podcast. We apologize
Lord.
for the time. And I would like to thank my friends here who put up with, being away last week, and then putting up with me trying to get everything back together after a week of being away. And we have not forgotten the wedding.
No, we haven't.
We just have to find a time to do it, but we will. And now a funeral one, and maybe a liturgy one.
Mm-hmm.
So watch us in the fall now. Let's see how many new ones we can come up with besides doing what we're doing. Yeah, right. That's really
Yeah,
good.
right. Yeah.
So don't forget where we are. I have some news.
Oh.
Oh, that's new, and that's loud. Sorry about that, gang. I have a new out so that we can use. Little Jewish sounding, but that's okay. Thank you for joining us today. Please send us some feedback through all the normal methods, and we will see you again next week. For Linda Reed, Steve Romano, and myself, thank you very much, and ciao for now.
Ciao.